So I wanted to take a moment to teach you guys how to create a turnaround. This is a turnaround of a cartoon character that I created. As you can see, he doesn't have exact proportions of a realistic person because it's a cartoon. The first thing you're going to do is I want you to mark off every inch on either side of a piece of 8.5 by 11 copy paper, the type of paper that goes through a copy machine or a printer, and then connect the lines across, so you should have an extra 1/2 inch on the bottom. And the reason why we do that is so that the measurements are the same all the way across, so that each character you create, each time you turn the person slightly, the eyes are at the same level, the nose is at the same level, the mouth is at the same level, the head is approximately the same size, and keeping that consistent level of measurement will enable you to create a turnaround that you can then animate. Now notice how I'm not completing one entire person before drawing the next person. I'm doing the neck, and then I'm doing the neck on the next person. I'm doing the hair, and then I'm doing the hair on the next person. So if you do that, if you make the nose on each person, the eyes on each person, it's a lot easier to keep them consistent because your brain remembers the last thing you drew. Whereas if you draw an entire person from beginning to end, it's going to be a lot more difficult to keep duplicating that person. But if you're just drawing a nose 8 different times, it's a lot easier. It ended up taking me 3 different pieces of paper in order to create this turnaround. And again, I made the head a lot bigger than a normal person's body would be because it's a cartoon. So I'm just going through and adding the different details. I'm going to speed through this section just to give you an idea of how I did it. You don't want the people to be too close to each other because you're going to need to cut them out in Photopea and stack them. So don't overlap them or make them crowd each other. Better to just use a new piece of paper. So I'm now adding my last view, which is the 3/4 view going in the other direction. So because they're mirror images of each other, I could have easily just flipped it in Photopea, but I decided to draw both views. So let me just finish this one up here. And now I'm going to start inking. If you use a Sharpie, make sure that you're only inking in the lines that you want to keep. As you can see, I have a lot of sort of very scratchy, sketchy lines. So what you want to do is you want to make these very clean, sharp lines showing the lines that you want to keep. And later on, you're going to erase all those short, choppy lines that are from sketching. You're also going to be erasing the lines that are the horizontal lines that helped guide you. So make sure to draw those lightly. And in general, you want to draw your pencil lines pretty light so that you can erase them later. Notice how I'm adding little bits of detail as I go. I'm adding detail to the shirt. I'm adding fingers. I'm adding like a feeling of softness to the shoes. I'm adding sleeves. So those little details, whatever you add in, make sure you add it on all the figures. The other thing that's very important is to close all your lines. If you don't close your lines when you use the magic wand tool in Photopea, some of the inside of the person is gonna come out, and you don't want that. So I'm just adding in as much detail as I can, but whatever detail I add to one, I've got to add to all of them. So it's got to be a balance. You don't want to go so detailed that one picture looks different from all the others. The other thing I want to point out is that when you're using a Sharpie, it bleeds through the paper onto the table. So notice how I have a scrap piece underneath so that all the bleed goes onto the extra piece of paper and not onto my table. That's real important. So now that I've outlined all of them, I scanned them, and then I brought them into Photopea. So here I am in Photopea, and I take my scan, and what I'm going to have to do is first I'm going to change each page of the scan to a smart object. So you just go to each layer, right-click, smart object, and then I'm going to go to each page and I'm going to rasterize it. So you just go to each page, page 1, page 2, page 3, right-click on the layer, rasterize it. Now I'm copying and pasting from my original document into a new document. The reason why is because my old document was a PDF, and I do not want a PDF. I need a Photoshop document. So there's really no way to convert it. Even once you rasterize it, it's still going to read it as a as a PDF. So putting it in a new document will help. So now that it's in the new document, I'm just erasing the extra, magic wanding out the extra. I've got these 3 layers, and then I'm going to very carefully go to each layer, and I'm going to cut out each figure and do a cut and then a paste so that I have all the layers of all the figures stacked on top of each other. Now, the important thing is you don't want to resize any of these figures. So you have to make sure that the original photograph that you took, that they were all basically the same size as each other. When you start resizing them, a lot of times you have trouble matching them up. But you want to have an entire stack of figures roughly the same size that are a sequence from beginning to end of the turnaround. Now, what you do is in the stack, you're going to rename each layer. So you rename the layer _A _ and then whatever the name of the layer is, background, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, layer 6. But you have to have the name _A _ and then the name of the layer. The reason why is that's code for Photopea that you're going to animate the layer. So I'm just cutting them out and stacking them on top of each other by hitting cut and paste so that I have the different figures in different layers. Now I'm going to rename the layers _A _ and then the name of the layer. And when I'm done stacking all the layers, I'm going to export it. Well, I'm going to initially try and export it as a GIF. And the reason why I'm doing that, I'm not actually going to export it as a GIF, but I want to make sure that the stack looks right. I want to make sure that the stack actually animates. So when I export it as a GIF, it's just sort of to test out. My end game is not a GIF. It's just to test out, to see if the animation actually looks like an animation, if it actually looks like a turnaround. The other thing, so I forgot to do the _A _ there, so it's not reading that top layer as an animation. So now I can see that it's spinning and that it looks right. So now at this point, I'm resizing it. I'm making sure that it's about 4 inches in height, that the DPI is around 300. So once I've resized the entire document, I'm going to do File, Export Layers. And the nice thing about when doing file export, well, right now I'm just going through each layer and I'm erasing those little lines that are left over from the lines that I drew because I didn't erase them fully before I scanned the image. My mistake. So I'm just kind of going through trying to erase some of the lines. But eventually I'm going to do File, Export Layers, and then I have to uncheck that top box. And the nice thing is, it'll export them as a zip file. I've already taught you guys how to unzip the zip file, but they're now named, each file is named the same thing that the layers were named. So now you go into the Wick Editor, name the project, change the size to 1080, import all the assets just like we did in our last project. And because I made sure that he was 4 inches tall, I now don't have to worry about resizing him. And that's very important because if you have to resize each figure, they're never going to really truly match up. So I'm using the onion skinning and I'm creating the animation. And now you can see I have a perfect turnaround. Now, of course, the objective of creating a turnaround is not just to create a turnaround. It's so that you can have an animation of a character moving within 3-dimensional space. create a character that you would be interested in using in future animation stories, because once you have this character created, you're going to be able to use them again and again.